But that's not that far from Donald Trump. You saw he mentioned me 4 different times saying that I should have had security at the Capitol on January 6th. I never had control of security at the Capitol. I certainly wasn't there on January 6th. He got confused. But look at what happened on Saturday when he went 2 minutes off the teleprompter. And look at what he did. The first thing he did was he mocked my husband's military efforts. And let me tell you, you mock one person in the military, you're mocking everybody in the military. But more than that, it's a pattern. You know, if he goes 2 minutes off a teleprompter, what's he doing? He's speaking from the heart, right? And this is the same pattern where he said that military members were suckers and losers. It's the same pattern that when he was at Arlington National Cemetery, he said, why did they do this? What was in it for them? He doesn't understand the founding of this country. The fact that we have men and women who have been willing to sacrifice, shed blood for the freedoms that we hold so dear. And in that moment, he showed that with that kind of disrespect for the military, he's not qualified to be the President of the United States because I don't trust him to protect them. Then he goes and says that he would not only not defend our friends and allies in NATO, but that he would encourage Putin to go and invade those countries. I want you to think about that for a second. NATO, not perfect, has been a 75-year success story. We have not had war in the region. And while, yes, we should ask them to pay their fair share, he literally put our men and women in harm's way when he said that. He put all of our allies in harm's way. Russia has never invaded a NATO country because Russia is intimidated by NATO. China's even intimidated by NATO. Russia's only invaded Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, all non-NATO countries. And here he went and sided with a thug who invaded a pro-American, freedom-loving country. 500,000 people have been injured and died because of Putin. You sided with a man who kills his opponents. You sided with a man where Evan Gersovich is a journalist sitting in jail for just telling the truth. You're siding with a man that has not hidden his feelings on wanting to defeat America. That shows us what we're getting. But what he's not talking about is showing that he's not thinking about us. We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. Right now, we're paying more in interest payments than we are in our defense budget. What does that tell Russia, China, and Iran? Instead of going off on things like that and tangents and becoming unhinged, he needs to focus on the fact that we've got to get this straight. And the way that we will get this straight is, first of all, I think we need to make sure that we stop all this wasteful spending. We have to go to Congress and tell them their job is to give us a budget on time. Do you know they've only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? You know what I say to that? You don't give us a budget on time, you don't get paid, period. Don't you think it's finally time we had term limits in Washington, D.C.? Don't you think it's time we had mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? Congress has become the most privileged nursing home in the country. This isn't being disrespectful. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know Joe Biden. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. These are people making decisions on our national security. We need to know they're at the top of their game. So when it comes to our economy, we need to start by first clawing back the $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks. And I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. The next thing we want to do is take as many federal programs as we can and send it down to the state level. That way we'll reduce the size of the federal government, but we will empower people on the ground. Think about health care, think about welfare, think about education, think about mental health. If all of that was in the hands of the people instead of Washington bureaucrats. And then we want to open up the middle class. Let's eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. Let's cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. And just like in this great place here, let's make small business tax cuts permanent. They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made small business tax cuts temporary. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. Don't just say it, let's start acting like it. And then you look at the border, and it's unlike anything we ever thought we'd see in the United States. 8.5 million illegal immigrants have come across that border. We had more fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number 1 cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. When I was governor, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. We need to take what we did in South Carolina and go national with it. We'll do a national E-Verify where every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens in America. We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. Let's go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is how we will stop what's happening on the border. But think about it. They had a chance to do something on the border last week. And what happened? Now, if you look at that bill, the part I liked about the bill was it strengthened asylum charges and asylum restrictions. We need to do that. 3 million illegal immigrants came in Trump's watch because our asylum laws weren't strong enough. We need to strengthen those. The part that was weak in that law was that it didn't have the Remain in Mexico policy. We've got to make sure everybody stays in Mexico and doesn't step foot on U.S. soil. And it also had a 5,000 person threshold. We don't want to wait for 5,000 people to come in before we decide to deal with the border. So 2 things went wrong there. 1, if Congress is going to do it, they need to do it right or not do it. And they need to stay there until they get it done. No more coming home just to get a break. But the second thing is, Donald Trump told them not to pass anything until the election. America's acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like. It just takes one person. We can't wait until the election for them to secure the border. It was wrong for him to do that. He was thinking about himself, and he wasn't thinking about the American people. And this goes into something else that's happened. If we really want to save America, if we really want to get things done, we've got to focus on what it takes to win. It doesn't mean anything if you have somebody that gets the nomination if they can't win a general election. And Republicans have to acknowledge a real truth here. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we go along with a new generational leader, leaves the baggage and the negativity behind, and looks forward with solutions in the future. Now, some hard truths. I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But no matter what we do, chaos follows him. And y'all know that. It follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. We will have a female president of the United States. Hard truth, it will either be me or Kamala Harris. Because you look at every one of those general election polls, every one of them. Trump against Biden, Trump loses by 5, he loses by 7, he loses by 9. Almost every one of the polls, on a good day, he might be even. Margin of error. I'm in every one of those same general election polls. And I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. Now think about that. 17 points, that's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's school boards. But you win by a margin like that, by double digits, you go into D.C. with a mandate to stop the wasteful spending and get our economy back on track. A mandate to get our kids reading again and back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate for law and order in our country, and that's a mandate that we can go in, take care of our veterans, have a strong America that prevents wars, and have a country we can be proud of. Don't you want that? Seven months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. But in order to do that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from everybody here. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't fight in this primary. It matters. We all know that there's a lot of people that vote in a general election that don't vote in a primary. And when you vote in a general election, you're given a choice. When you vote in a primary, you make your choice. This is the time we get to make our choice. We have to look at the fact and acknowledge 70% of Americans don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. The majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump. Poll came out yesterday, 59% of Americans think Donald Trump and Joe Biden are too old. Do we really want to have our country in this situation and rely on 2 80-year-old candidates? We need to have somebody that can put in 8 years of strong discipline, strong work that can really get our country back on track. No more chaos, no more vendettas, no more revenge, No more mocking our military. No more playing with our national security. And no more egos where it's all about them and it's not about us. You know, when I announced, they asked me why I was running. And I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for Michael and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. The average home buyer in America now is 49 years old. The American dream is leaving them. And I'm doing this for my son, who's a senior in college. And I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We do have a country to save. So this is what I'll tell you. This is our time to make our movement heard. This is our time to get into the fight. So go out there and tell 10 people. Let them know early voting started today. Take them to the polls. Get them involved. Get a yard sign. Go out and email your friends. Call your family. Let them know we need them voting in this election. We've done it before. We can do it again. But when we do it, South Carolina will show the country that we're ready to get back on track. God bless you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.